And no, Martha's not going anywhere. I'm really looking forward to serving with Martha. So as Gary said, I moved back here from Hawaii, but I was born and raised here in Charlotte, actually, and lived in the Triangle area for 14 years, and then moved to California, which was a real jolt to this country girl. It's just crazy out in the Bay Area. But then from there I moved to Hawaii, where I lived for 16 years, and came back here to be closer to family and to be a grandma, which I had not been able to do over the years because I lived so far away. My family was all here at the first service, which was good because I was really a wreck. I'm only a little nervous now. I was seriously nervous first service, so I got to try all this out on them. So what I want to talk about today really follows a lot of my passion and my focus and theology of being a deacon and working within this church family, which I am so excited to be in service here. I fell in love with this church the first time I came through the doors. And you are an incredible, you're a deacon's dream, you're an outwardly focused church that believes in going out and getting your hands dirty. And God, there are so many deacons that pray that they end up in a church like this. So give yourselves a pat on the back. I think God would understand if you did. So I'm going to start with a very deep theological point. You ready? God never said go to church. Jesus never said go to church. Think about it. Jesus said be the church. So why are we here? What are we doing in this building? We spend our time, talent, treasure building this building so we can come here. So why are we here? Well, in my crazy little world, and it's pretty funky in there sometimes, I see this as like a giant filling station, right? We all need to come together with like-minded people who understand what we're talking about, who share the same belief systems, and we fill up our tanks, we pump up our tires, Father Gary cleans our windshield, and we go out into the world. Because face it, if you don't leave the pump once you've filled up, you're not going anywhere, and people are not going to understand why you're there. So we go forth from this place to do the work we're given to do after coming and filling up. Now, face it, that point of worship in our daily lives is kind of hard. I mean, most of us are pretty busy. Is there anybody in here that doesn't have anything to do? Yeah, right. So we come here where we turn the cell phones off, mostly. And when the cell phone goes off, I just think, well, it's the world reminding us that there's a world out there that we need to be involved with. It's like when children cry or laugh or start talking really loudly in the back of the church. That's because they're our blessed children, and it's okay. So, we can't do ministry with our okoles in the pews. And for any of you who don't know that Hawaiian term, use your imagination. You can put the word in there, I know. So we're here and we come together as a group because we need each other. We don't work well in a vacuum. And the church is a stopping point. Because when you get right down to it, you're the church. I'm the church. And that's the church out there. This is a place we come to worship. And we fill up our tanks. So today's lesson is really germane to me because this same series of readings were done about the time that I felt God's hand on me, pulling me up and pointing me towards ordained ministry. And they have some very special meaning to me. And I pondered over them over the years, as all of us who do any kind of Bible study do. But the theme for me, of the million you could pick out of all these readings, because every Sunday I say, wow, these readings this week were really rich. And the next week I say the same thing, and the next week I say the same thing. But for me, this week it's about joy, discipleship, and being known. Let's look at it a minute. In the psalm, the psalmist says, he put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God, which is all about discipleship and joy. And one thing that I learned in Hawaii is if it's worth doing with food, dance, and music. It's joy. And the Hawaiian people put joy into everything they do, whether it's raising up a newborn baby or burying a blessed and beloved elder. It's still done with joy. It says, I will thank you because I am marvelously made. Your works are wonderful and I know it well. I don't always feel that when I look in the mirror, but my body was not hidden from you, he said. And this is one of the things that I think is common, is that we sometimes believe we can hide things from God. And we do that because we are so busy hiding things from one another. There are parts of me that I'm not too crazy about, and I'm not really crazy about letting you in there to look at those parts. So we try to hide things from one another. But then he talks about we're revealed. There's no hiding from God, which is like a relief, right? And it's also scary. It's really terrifying. So when we reveal ourselves to each other, we give each other a certain amount of power. We can hurt each other. So we're careful. But then Isaiah says, when I was still in my mother's womb, the Lord called me. And Isaiah wasn't the only one. All of us have that privilege. God knew us in our mother's wombs. We are chosen. He has called us. Now, what we do with it, or if we do anything with it, that's kind of up to us. We don't have to. God isn't going to force us to. And in the epistle in Corinthians, it's really wonderful because in this we're assured that we have everything we need. We are fully equipped to go out into the world and do the work God gives us to do, and it's different for all of us. We don't have to ask for it. God knows what we need before we even ask. We are fully equipped to go out and do the work, even when we don't know we are. And sometimes for me, I have to take a step in faith and go out there and do it before I realize how equipped God really had me, or if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, how I ought to go back and do what I'm supposed to do. So it's not out there somewhere, this thing we need in order to do our ministry. It's right here, right now. It's in us. End of discussion. But in the Gospel of John, we come to this place where if we pull last week's readings and this week's readings we had the baptism of Jesus, which we missed out on because of snow. But John tells people, I myself have seen and testified that this is the Son of God. And testify is a really big word in the Bible. It's not one you use lightly. But he testifies that he has seen, and this is the Son of God. And as disciples, we also have to testify. What are we looking for? What are you looking for? Jesus asked that to people who want to know, where's he going, where's he living, where's he preaching, whatever they mean by that, where are you staying? And Jesus answers, come and see. Like we talked to the kids this morning, when people, my mother, how many of you parents got a whole lot smarter as you got older? Have you noticed that? I'm going to be brilliant by the time my son is my age. Because my mother was so much smarter than I ever gave her credit for, because she didn't say a whole lot. But her thing was, don't talk about it, be it. Live your life in such a way that people will say, what has she got that I don't have? And it doesn't have to be a big thing you do. What are you looking for? And you say, come and see. You might bring someone into this church. They might not want to go to church. Maybe you sit in a park and talk to someone who's in pain. There are no small actions, no small jobs. We all do what we're asked to do at the moment we ask. And there have been people who did not commit suicide because someone paused for just a second and told them that someone cared. So it's all about discipleship. It's all about being known. But let's not forget that 2 times John the Baptizer said, and I did not know him. So we have Jesus coming there, and we talked about this earlier in Bible study. Did they know each other? Well, they were cousins, they might have. But John did not know Jesus was the Christ. He did not know this was the Christ he had waited for and had hoped for and had prayed for until Jesus was revealed to him. And this was a very big thing, this revelation. And what we do as a congregation and what I do as a deacon, and as we learn about each other and we grow together, is I'm going to be trying to reveal myself to you and hope you're going to bless me with the same thing. I need to know who you are. And I'm going to tell you now, I won't remember your names. I am terrible with names. It'll take me a little while, so be patient with me. But I need to know who you are. I see a handsome young man sitting here, and I don't know anything about him. He looks friendly, someone I'd like to get to know. But I want to know him on a deep level. And I want him to know me in those uncomfortable places that we are, because we become stronger in that knowledge. We cannot do outreach without in-reach. And this church is not an exception in that humans are not real good at the in-reach part. We really aren't. So God revealed to me when he touched me and told me that I was going to go into diaconal ministry, that we can't hide from him, we can't hide from one another. And think about it, if Jesus had not been revealed that day, how different things might have been. Who knows what gift is sitting here this morning, but if you don't reveal yourself, who might miss out on that gift? Now, we deacons, Martha and I, are strange creatures. We live with one foot in the world, one foot in the church. And we're never supposed to settle in either space. With our ministries, we are asked to make a bridge that brings the troubles and all of the world into the church to be considered, and then sends the church out to minister to those needs, which means what we bring in is not always pretty, and what we bring in is not always welcome. People sometimes get a little upset, because sometimes the things we least want to see are those things that someone, and it can be any of you, bring forward and say, have you thought about or have you seen? And it's only in revelation that we become true brothers and sisters in Christ. And we need that. We need that so much. Just as much as we need our Eucharist. So I have a ministry areas where I'm pretty comfortable and I do my best work, but that changes. And it's very fluid. And I need you to help me define that and refine that ministry, because I can't do it alone. I can't do it without your help. And I'll be asking for your help, and I want to hear what you have to say. And as we all get to know each other, I think it's going to be fun and interesting. A little uncomfortable once in a while, but... So as I left my last place I was assigned at a church in Wailuku on the island of Maui. How many people here have not been to Hawaii? You're going, right? You got to go. I lived there for 16 years, and it is probably the most incredible 16 years I will ever have in my life in terms of beauty and talk about feeling God. You know how sometimes when you walk through the woods, you're sure God's got his hand on your shoulder? Well, I felt that way most of the time I was on Maui. So I told this story, and you're going to relate to it a little better than they did because they didn't know Southern Baptists there. A man was at the track, and he was betting, and he was losing. He was losing every race, and he was getting desperate because he pretty much had lost all his money, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And then he notices over at the paddock area that there's this Episcopal priest, and he's blessing these horses. Then he also notices that every horse the priest blesses wins. So he watches and he makes sure this is true, and then he takes his money and he goes to the betting window and he puts his money down on this next horse. The horse wins. So he watches, the priest blesses a horse, he goes to the betting window, he puts his money down, that horse wins. And he watches this, and all through the afternoon, he's betting on the horses the priest blessed. They're all winning, and he is flush. He's a happy guy. So last race of the day, this is a long shot horse. So he thinks, okay, I'm going to put everything I've got on this last race. So he goes and he does just that. Comes back to his place at the rail and waits. They start the race. Not only does his horse not win, it falls dead before it gets to the finish line. Well, the guy's outraged and he's hurt and he's desperate and he's angry. So he runs up to the priest and says, "What is this? I watched you all day blessing these horses, and every horse you blessed won, and now here in this last race, the horse not only didn't finish, he died?" And the priest looked at him and said, "If you don't mind my asking, what is your faith tradition?" And he says, "I'm a Southern Baptist." And he said, "Well, son, the problem with you Southern Baptists is you don't know the difference between blessing and last rites." I need to be reminded of that sometimes. So I need you guys to help me know that. And no offense to Southern Baptists. I know there are people in here that used to be Southern Baptists. I'll bet you money. I know there were a couple in the early service. So I'm looking forward to serving with you. I'm hoping today gave you a little bit of a sense of what I'm interested in and where my passions are. And I am so blessed to be here with you. And I want you to feel the level of blessing that I feel, the way you opened your hearts in this church to me the first day I walked through the door. So, from my mouth to God's ear, thank you for opening your hearts to me, and we'll get busy. Amen.